everyone. Welcome to today's DP Discover webinar, Retirement Compliance Essentials, What Every Colorado Employer Needs to Know. I am Diana Murray, former CEO at ASAP Accounting and Payroll and current General Manager for Dominion Payroll Colorado. We are thrilled to have you guys with us today as we dive into key aspects of staying compliant with the Colorado Savings Plan. And during this session, we'll explore what it means to be a fiduciary, your role as a sponsor of a retirement plan, and share some best practices for you to remain compliant. I'm super excited and honored to have Dennis Tender join us today. He's Vice President and CCO of DP Grow. And Dennis brings a wealth of experience to the table, having served significant roles in the financial services industry, including Vice President of Retail Distribution at Gensworth Financial and Managing Partner at New England Financial. Today's webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be sent out following our presentation today, along with any supporting documents. If you have any questions during our presentation today, please submit them in the chat function on your toolbar today, and we will address them at the end. If for some reason we don't have enough time to answer all the questions, we will include them in our follow-up email as well. Super excited to kick things off today and want to make the best use of our time. So I will turn it over to you, Dennis. Welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Diana. And good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Thanks for taking some time today. As Diana mentioned, my name is Dennis Tender, and I head up the company here, DP Grow. We're a sister company to Dominion Payroll Retirement Plans. And so today I really just want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about what it means to be a fiduciary and what your roles and responsibilities are as an employer and as a company when you have a retirement plan. We're going to give you some best practices and some takeaways today, some things that you can do to stay compliant. And then I want to touch on the Colorado Savings Plan and the Colorado Savings Plan's Essentials and answer any questions that I can around that, as we know that went live in 2022 and they're starting to police that folks that need to participate and or register in that plan are doing so. So we'll touch on that towards the end. So with that, we're going to start this morning with the F word, right? What does it mean to be a fiduciary? And we hear that word thrown around quite often. ERISA, Employer Retirement Income Security Act, defines a fiduciary as a person, as you can see here, involved with plan administration, the management and the control over the investments, and or the person who gives investment advice regarding plan assets. And what I usually say here is that the owner of the business and or those folks that are acting in terms or involved with the plan administration of any retirement plan ultimately are fiduciary. And so it is a big responsibility and one that we take very seriously, and that the DOL and both the IRS do as well. And I think there's a lot of things that I find with employers over the years that they're just unaware of some of the things that they need to do and that they're responsible to do. If you do any of the following activities, you are likely a fiduciary. So if you sign the plan documents, including the adoption agreement, if you exercise any authority over the plan, of course, if you sign the Form 5500 or any other government forms, and this one's a big one, have authority to make decisions that may impact plan assets, including how assets are in investments. And so, this could mean a lot of folks, right? This could be your HR person, or if you're an HR person on the phone today, if you're the CFO, if you're involved and you're really part of that decision-making process when it comes to the plan and the day-to-day operation and management of your retirement plan, you do have the authority and you are considered a fiduciary. The biggest thing is, do what's in the best interest of your employees, of course. And what you would do yourself, just use common sense in acting as a fiduciary on a plan, providing that leadership and purpose. Some best practices in terms of fiduciary responsibilities is, making informed investment choices and ensure that investment options are well diverse. Most plans or lineups come from the record keepers today. If you have an advisor on the plan, of course, they're going to build that lineup out. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between different types of fiduciaries within the advisor realm. But the regulators really what they want and they expect you to do as a fiduciary for a retirement plan is they want you to just monitor these things periodically. Of course, they use the word periodically, which there's no defined answers to. We suggest that at least every couple of years, minimally, that you want to benchmark the plan. There's tens of thousands of these different types of investments that are out there, and you want to make sure that they're performing as well as their peers and that the costs are reasonable. In addition to that, we want to make sure that you're providing education and just some type of tools and resources to your participants so they can make informed decisions when it comes to making investment choices in terms of their money, right? Because we're talking about people's money. One of the things that you're required to have by the Department of Labor is to have a fiduciary binder. At the end of this presentation, there are some examples that we can give you, some tools we're going to send out. If you don't have one, these tools will help you put one together. But in this fiduciary binder, if you were to be audited by the IRS or by the Department of Labor, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to ask you for this binder. In this binder, it should include investment committee bylaws. There should be a board resolution if you don't have one. Fiduciary acknowledgement letters. These are key, especially if you are handing over that responsibility to some other people within your organization. Again, maybe HR, might be your CFO, your COO. You should have and need to have an investment policy statement. You should have a meeting, at least one fiduciary meeting a year, and have an investment committee. By the way, you can be a committee of one if you want to. And then lastly is making sure that there's some form of investment due diligence or you've got somebody doing investment due diligence on the plan. Administrative documents. These are things that should be kept in the binder. Your plan's adoption agreement, that's a key. That's your mortgage, I like to say, document. It gives you all the details in terms of your plan, its eligibility, just the rules that in terms of your plan. A basic plan document, a summary plan description, which you should have again with your plan. A ERISA bond, it's a requirement that you have a ERISA bond with any retirement plan. So you want to make sure that you have a copy of that coverage in there. You want a fiduciary calendar. The calendar is going to be examples of things like when the 5500 needs to be filed by, when annual notices need to go out, an annual evaluation, your annual compliance reports, and as you can see here on the right-hand side, these are a bunch of different forms, annual forms and reports that are due each year when it comes to retirement plans. So you want to make sure you have those in your binder as well. We recommend, and we think a good best practices tip as well, is to maintain digital records. Maintaining accurate records during open enrollment is critical. One of the things that we see out there, particularly during audit, is regulators want to make sure that when folks are eligible, they're getting notification that they are eligible to be able to participate in the plan. Also, they want to make sure that you're getting notices out to folks on an annual basis. Up until just this past year, that always had to be done via mail. Starting in 2025, part of the Secure Act 2022, a lot of these notices are going to be able to be delivered electronically. But historically, we've had to be able to send these out and send them out to folks. And the regulators want to make sure that you're taking a reasonable effort to get those, folks move, right? So maybe they're not in your employee anymore, but they still have money in the plan. They've moved, you don't have a current address for them. They expect as an employer, as a fiduciary, that we're taking a reasonable action to try and get those notices to those folks. You need to have and should have investment committee bylaws. As I mentioned, you can be a committee of one. These bylaws should include the following, purpose and function of the committee, defining roles and responsibilities, if there's a voting process, adding and removing or resigning committee members, and then just, having documenting that you had this formality to this meeting and have all those that are involved, fiduciary acknowledgements. I think it's really important that if somebody is going to be acting or as part of this process, we're going to give you an example of a letter that you can use, but you should give them and have them sign a letter that they understand that they have a fiduciary responsibility and that they're part of this process. And if they leave your employ or if they leave the committee, We're also going to share with you an acknowledgement removal letter that you can have them sign, knowing and giving them the opportunity to formally say, hey, I'm no longer going to be part of this process. Next is what's called an investment policy statement. This is very important in IPS. It's a document that outlines the overall objectives of the plan and guides future adjustments and changes to the investments. Everybody is required to have an investment policy statement. Here's an example of a meeting, right? Meetings and agenda minutes that you can use to have your fiduciary meeting. We're going to talk in a moment about benchmarking plans, but really the big three in terms of looking is investments and investment performance, expenses on the plan. In any retirement plan, there's three basic expenses. There's what's called record keeping and administration. There's an advisor on the plan, there'd be an advisor fee, and then what's called management expenses on the investment themselves, what we call M&E. That's what those money managers charge that are managing the money or those funds. Plan performance, contributions and deferrals, that's the administration of the plan, are very important. The DOL and the IRS want to make sure that when we take money out of people's paychecks, that we're moving that money into the investments and we're doing it on a timely basis. We also want to make sure that that's being reconciled. Things like loans, things like withdrawals. These things all need to be made sure that they're being done accurately and that we're maintaining good records. This is an example of an investment due diligence that we do. It's a report that we have and use each year. And what it does is it's comparing how the investments that you have in your particular fund or fund lineup in your retirement plans are matching up against those peers out there in the industry. And if something seems out of line, in other words, if I've got a large cap growth fund in my plan and that large cap fund is not doing very well for whatever reason compared to its peers, I need to document that and I need to find out why, and then also what the process is going to be if there needs to be make a change. What can you do to protect yourself when it comes to lawsuits and IRS trouble when it comes to a plan? And again, here are some tips, is again, making sure that oversee annual compliance is really is just having a plan, making sure that, as I mentioned, you've got Fidelity bond coverage, that if you have a 401k provider or an advisor that you're using on your plan, and we recommend that you do, that you're relying on these third parties, but that you're meeting with these third parties at least annually and getting the information and holding them accountable to doing these things on your behalf. Secure Act update, what we are starting to see is that we're starting to see some penalties. We're starting to see more audit and more penalties when it comes to maintenance of plans. The Department of Labor, as you can see here, can assess a penalty of up to as much as over $2,300 per day for late filings of things like 5500s, etc. So it's really important that you know what the rules are and that you're getting things done and are performed on a timely basis. In the retirement plan space, and particularly in the 401k world, you've got different types of advisors. You don't have to have an advisor on a retirement plan. I always get this question, and why I put it in the deck today is a lot of folks will ask me what's the difference between a 321 advisor and a 338. And with a 321, you can see this person or this advisor is a co-fiduciary on the plan, and they can make recommendations in terms of investments or making changes when need be, but they can't make those. That responsibility still ends with you, the employer. A 338 investment manager is one that you're transferring that discretion and that responsibility over to that 338 to oversee and to manage the plan's investments. So you're turning that over to that person, that responsibility, and you're having them handle it. Here's just a little example of some things that have happened out there over the years. This one was pretty interesting. Fidelity had to pay over $28 million to settle a 401k lawsuit that was brought by their employees. The employees maintained that Fidelity themselves did not monitor record-keeping fees and that the expenses were too high compared to their peers. And because the plan had promoted Fidelity's proprietary investment products versus having an array or diversified portfolio, the regulators found that, yes, they acted not responsibility as a fiduciary on their own plan. Another example here is, and again, I throw this one out here because it's a popular name, Trader Joe's was involved, as you can see here, also in a ERISA lawsuit. Plan sponsor chose inappropriate high-cost mutual fund shares. One of the things you'll see is these expenses, as I mentioned, the three: record keeping, administration, advisor, if there's an advisor fee, and then management expenses on investments. They're all come in different shapes and forms. Everybody slices and dices it a little bit differently. Sometimes it could be buried in invoice. Sometimes these will be buried in different share classes, a more expensive share class where some of that revenue shared back to the record keeper or maybe to an advisor. So it's really important to understand what those charges are, and like I said, that you're looking at and making sure that they're reasonable and within industry standards at least every couple of years. And then lastly, we saw the same thing with the JP Morgan with their own plan, again with their employees. That the expenses and the options were just not befitting of the company and also what the employees were paying. Again, we'll come to some questions on that. I know I went through that deck pretty quickly. Next, I want to talk about the Colorado Savings Program. For those of you that are aware of it or maybe not aware of it, it did come in 2022, and the reason behind the program was we have a savings crisis in the United States today. Folks just aren't saving money. They're running out of money in retirement. If you look at just savings in America in general, in the United States, we save about 3 cents of every dollar that we earn as Americans. In Japan, for example, they save 25 cents on average of every dollar that they earn. And the big thing is that why did folks in Japan save more money than they do in the U.S. when their cost of living and expenses are 3 times as high as ours? Is that they've learned at an early age to pay themselves first. They've learned that saving is critical to their ability to be able to maintain the same quality of life and standard of living one day when they get older. And we've kind of gone awry on that here in the U.S. And so the government's really trying to make an effort to get folks very conscious effort and make it easy for them to be able to save money. One of the easiest ways as we know to save money is through our paycheck and through our employer. And so these programs have become very popular. Colorado is now one of 15 states that has a mandatory law and program requiring employers that have at least 5 employees and that have been in business for at least 2 years offer some form of payroll deduction savings for their employees. These vary from state to state. Some states are more, some states are less. For example, Virginia is 25. As I mentioned, Colorado is one of 15 now that have laws. There are 30 states now that are working actively within their legislative bodies to produce laws as well. With the Colorado Savings Program, it's free, so there's no cost to it. You as the employer are not responsible from a fiduciary standpoint in terms of investments, etc. It's a payroll deduction IRA program, and it's a Roth IRA is how it starts. It can be pre-tax, but it is also Roth, and Roth is how it starts. The requirements to be able to participate are that simply 18 years of age, and also they have to be enrolled within 30 days of joining your company, and they're enrolled automatically at a rate of 5%. So if they don't want to participate in the plan, if you take this on, this Colorado Savings Program, and participants do not want to participate, you want to make sure that they unenroll within the first 30 days of the plan. 18 years of age, as I mentioned, also that they've got the taxable wages and they've been in your employ for at least 180 days. That's a requirement for folks to participate. It's the same Roth IRA rules. The maximum they can put in is up to $7,000 in 2024. They can put up to $8,000 if they're over age 50. And the MAGA single under one folks under 146K can do up to the maximum, and joint filing is $230K. So it's the same rules as a Roth IRA outside of the payroll deduction program. The funds are actively managed. They've got some great funds in there. Vestwell is the engine behind the technology in terms of record keeping the plan. The average cost basis is about 32 basis points on the funds themselves within the plan. State Street are the target date funds. They've got some great actively managed funds, as I mentioned. And then the only cost is to the participant, which is $22 per year or $5.50 per quarter they'll see on a statement if they participate in the plan. Again, some key features is the Roth IRA accounts. Employer participation. Employers are required to participate in the program unless they offer another qualified retirement plan. Everybody on the call, if you've been in business for 2 years or longer, should have registered, have gone online and registered. And if you have a qualified plan, then you, of course, can be excused. And then if you don't, and you have 5 employees, then you need to participate. The program also offers a simple way for employees to save, as we mentioned. They can customize their contributions as well. If they auto enroll at 5, they can go down to 1, or they can go up to as much as 90% of their paycheck until they hit the limits if they choose so. And then I also wanted to mention today that there is a board of governance that the program oversees in terms of maintaining and being, quote, the 338 on the plan for the state plan. So so that's the information that I wanted to cover today. We're going to open it up for some questions, I believe.
All righty, let's see here. We got a couple questions that came in. Do you have any recommendations for resources available for fiduciaries who need guidance or support?
Yeah, I think, hiring an advisor, do your due diligence and find a good advisor. I always say finding a good advisor is the same as, find a good Bible-based church, right? Find a good advisor to help. There's a bunch of great folks out there, but, hiring an advisor, I think, makes sense. I've learned over my 40 years in this business that one good piece of advice or even an intervention sometimes by a good advisor can be worth 10 years of fees. So, and then there's a lot of good record keepers out there too. You don't necessarily need an advisor, but do your homework. There's some great record keepers out there too that can also provide assistance when it comes to helping you be a responsible fiduciary.
How can fiduciaries stay up to date on changes in laws and regulations that affect their responsibilities as a fiduciary?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's some great publications out there that you can subscribe to. The ERISA itself, the ERISA Act, and the governing body for the United States that governs that, they have a newsletter that goes out every year. Also, I would suggest that there's and I can send out, I'll make sure that Diana, with this presentation that we're going to send out, that I've got a list of some resources that will go out as well. But there's some great publications and newsletters and things out there that I would recommend that you subscribe to. I'm trying to think of the name of the one that we have. It's part of a retirement plans publication, national 401k specialist, it's called. That we subscribe to, that we get updates from. And so a lot of great information out there with today's social media, etc. And that's what I would recommend you subscribe to something.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll include some of those links in our follow-up email. That's a great idea. Let's see. Along same lines, how often should fiduciaries review their actions and decisions for compliance and ethics? We got some great people in the room.
Yeah. At least once a year. The law requires that you do it periodically, is how the law is defined. And, our idea of periodically is, you should benchmark the plan at least every couple of years, ideally once a year. And that's why you have a financial committee. Even if you're a committee of one, you just set that day aside, an hour or two, whatever it happens to be, to go through your binder and to be able to go through those things. and making sure that you're compliant. So, you want to at least do it once a year. For some of our bigger, more sophisticated plans, we'll meet with our clients on a quarterly basis, just to make sure, particularly if there's a lot of moving parts, but at least once a year.
Yeah, and from my angle too, I would say from an HR perspective, when things do happen, just document, document, document. And I think that's always helpful, and having those documentations to back up different set of circumstances. And then if you go through an annual audit, having that as a part of your annual audit of that, just add that to your checklist and make sure that you are checking your compliance and your decision making there. And I think that's a great idea. Let's see. What steps should a fiduciary take if they're unsure about a decision or action?
Yeah, and again, another great question there. I would definitely go to whoever the record keeper is, if you're whatever record keeper you're working with, and you can ask them for confirmation. I think it's a good place to start. And then again, check with if you've got a CPA that you work with. Just getting a second opinion from anybody, a trusted advisor, so to speak, I think makes a lot of sense. The other thing you can do too is you can Google your specific investments or investment lineups. Morningstar is a great company, a great independent servicing company that provides a lot of detailed information, and they run reports and they'll compare due diligence amongst its peers, and they grade them, right? They rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, and they kind of show how things are matched up. So there's also some great tools and resources right online that you can do to kind of do your own little due diligences as well. I think the big thing is that I try to recommend to folks that you want to watch and make sure that something's just not awry, right? It's just out of the ordinary, The second is that you don't have a lot of overlap. Sometimes you can have a bunch of different investments, but when you look at the top 10 holdings of those funds or investments, sometimes they can be very similar or the same. And so those are some of the things that you want to just look at if you're going to look at that on your own. But definitely find some tools and resources.
Excellent. How do you know if you have to file a 5500?
Everybody has to file a 5500. So again, if it's a 401k a plan or a 403b, as an example, those are required. So you have to file one if you have one of those plans on an annual basis. And so again, I would suspect that whoever the record keeper is, there's two types of platforms. You have what's called bundled or unbundled in our business. Bundled is where your record keeper is also the administrator on the plan. That means they would be responsible for filing that 5500 or at least preparing it on your behalf. If it's unbundled, that means you're going to bring in a third party, what we call a TPA or a third party administrator, somebody outside. Think of it like a CPA on your plan to do that piece of work. And so check with whoever the plan is with, record keeper, if it's a Fidelity or an American Funds or a Principal or a John Hancock or an Ascensus or all these are great record keepers that are out there. If you're on a bundled platform, and they will give you when and that whole timeline. We talked about that calendar and what the requirements are. They'll provide that information. And if it's unbundled, if you're hiring somebody else to do it, of course, get that schedule from them and make sure you're on the same page.
And that is employers of all sizes under those plans. So even if you have less than 50 employees, you're still required to file that 5500.
Correct. Yes. Every plan, you can be a 401k plan with one participant in it, and you're required to file a 5500. Yes.
Okay. Do we need to register our plan annually with Colorado, or was the registration one time? So that might be specific to Colorado Secure Savings.
Yeah, it's a great question. Just one time. Yep, just one time. Of course, if there's a material change, if you were to terminate your plan, then you'd have to let the re-register, so to speak, on the site that you are no longer eligible for that dismissal. But there's only one time that you have to do it. Great question.
Mm-hmm. How is compliance monitored and enforced for the Colorado Secure Savings Plan? Ooh, that's a great question.
It is. It's just starting. We don't know the details of that yet. They're a little bit behind in terms of how they're going to enforce it. What I could share with you is what we're seeing in other states is that it's through audit. And for those folks that aren't complying, we're seeing right now fines as high as $250 a day for the number of days that the employer's been out of compliance, not participating or registering. So just to keep that in mind. But we believe that enforcement is going to start soon. And that's simply going to be if you're an employer and you have it registered, somebody's going to reach out to you from the state, from Colorado, and they're going to say, hey, you didn't register. Tell us a little bit more about your company and why.
Excellent. I think there may be a couple other questions coming in, but this is probably a good opportunity in the Q&A for me to even address as a payroll provider that we do offer integrations with many 401k providers. So as it relates to the per payroll reporting requirements, as well as funding those contributions and matches, that is something that we can provide and help you with. So I would be remiss to say, talk to us about your options and how we can help with that administrative task. So I'm waiting for a couple other questions to come in. Get them in while you can.
Great. And I'm going to, while we're doing that, I'm going to share my screen here again very quickly. I took it off because I wanted to get a chance to see everybody. Again, here's my contact information. Outside of today, if you have any other additional questions and want to reach out to us here, like I said, we are, independent, registered investment advisory firm. And so we deal with all different types of plans and record keepers as a such. But one of the things I wanted to share with you quickly, sorry, I'm flying back through this, is that we do have some samples. So we will send these out. I've got a sample board resolution that you can use. We've got a sample fiduciary acknowledgement letter that you can use, as we talked about earlier, along with a fiduciary acceptance letter, an example of a IPS statement, agenda, as we mentioned, for your committee. And so feel free to take a look through that information. Now, I know we're going to send it out to everybody and use those examples to help get your binders in order.
That's excellent. Thanks so much, Dennis. And again, I would be remiss to say that just because we do have Colorado Secure Savings in Colorado doesn't mean you have to have that. You have to have an equivalent plan. So this is a good opportunity to discuss with DP Grow if you are interested in your own retirement plan to comply with the Colorado Secure Savings requirement. So thank you, Dennis, for sharing such valuable information with us today. We will, if you do have future questions, Dennis shared his contact information. It will also be on the presentation materials that we send after. So everyone, thank you so much for your participation and look for the follow-up email coming at you soon. And I hope everyone has a wonderful long weekend.
Yes, thank you. You too, Diana. Thanks, everyone.